Welcome to Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. In the next half hour, you'll obtain insights and tools to transform your life using the biblical principles found in the 12-step program. We believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience because we all have struggles in life. Struggles with addictions, food, depression, anxiety, and relationships, to name a few. You'll be encouraged to see how others have found a new way of life with hope for the future through life recovery. Your host is Steve Arterburn, founder of New Life Ministries and Women of Faith, author of over 100 books, and teaching pastor at Northview Church in Carmel, Indiana, one of the 20 largest churches in America. Steve is the co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, the #1 selling recovery Bible. With over 3 million copies sold, this is the Bible given to inmates by Prison Fellowship and the Pew Bible for the Salvation Army. Now here's Steve.
Hi there. Welcome to Life Recovery Today. Steve Arterburn here. Thanks for joining me. We've got a great interview today with Stacey Sadler. She is a person that has absolutely repurposed her life the way anybody could, I think, or most anybody. I think you'll love that. You know, you've heard me talk about acceptance being the answer to all my problems today. That great quote from Bill Wilson in the Big Book. So, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. But I got to tell you, right after acceptance, maybe comes the word wisdom. That's really an amazing thing to possess after you've accepted the reality or accepted the challenge or accepted whatever you need to accept. King Solomon, oh my goodness, he says to God after, what do you want? He says to God, here's what I want. I want wisdom. Well, the wisest thing he ever did was asking God for wisdom, and then God granted that. He could have asked for anything, but this wise man said, Lord, please give me wisdom. You know, when you have wisdom, you start to see yourself. It's not always somebody else that's wrong. And you're not always wrong either. Sometimes we so shame ourselves that if we had some wisdom, insight, maybe we wouldn't do that. Maybe we'd give ourselves as much of a break as we do a herding animal along the side of the road. Wisdom helps us see things from God's perspective. And from God's perspective, yes, we all mess up. But there is hope, there is a future, there is a life beyond anything that we ever expected. One of the great gifts of life recovery is the gift of wisdom. When you work the steps, well, you're not just working some things to do, but I believe that you're building insight into yourself and insight into others. And truly, because all of those steps are based on biblical principles, you're developing a perspective that is very godly. The most valuable thing that we could ever do is have enough wisdom after we've accepted reality to do something with what has happened to us. I've said it often, what happens is important, but what happens as a result of what happens, well, that's even more important. Like with kids, they're going to do stuff, but what you do after they do the stuff, man, that makes you a great parent or not. Well, we're going to talk to Stacey because after a lot of trauma, oh my goodness, she has become one of the strongest, most respected people in the area of treating trauma. We'll do that after this.
Are you going through your struggles alone? Do you want someone to talk to help you through your pain? Do you feel like a failure when you relapse again, telling yourself, next time will be different? Don't walk this path alone anymore. Join a life recovery group today and be a person that your friends and family can be proud of. God created us to be in community, and we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country, and if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. Life Recovery brings recovery to you, right where you are. You'll take a journey with others to find healing and freedom. Whether you're looking to join a group or start one, New Life Ministries is here for you. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit liferecoverytoday.net.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. You know, we started New Life in 1988, and since then I've met a few counselors and a few therapists, and some are amazing and some maybe not so much so. But one of the people I respect most is Stacey Sadler. She really is an amazing person to work with. She's worked with me on many of our intensives, and certainly now working with folks who have been the victim of someone who has a sexual integrity problem, our Restore workshop. But she's really fascinating. I mean, she deals in complex trauma. She's a specialist in that area. And, you know, she has this multidimensional partner trauma model that she works with. She's a great, strong believer. But man, does she ever take something that happened to her and use it to reach out and help a whole bunch of other people. And I'm very glad to have you with me. Stacey, welcome to Life Recovery Today.
Thank you. I'm so excited and happy to be here to share what's happened in my life.
Well, we'll start just by saying that you were married and it didn't go well. Maybe you could just tell us what that means when it didn't go well. What was that?
Well, early on, my husband had an addiction. There were mental health issues, and I didn't quite know what it was, but it ended up moving itself into a prescription drug problem, and things were going south, all emotionally, financially, just like they do with an addiction. And I was losing myself completely because, he liked me to be who he wanted me to be. So things were pretty bleak at some points in my life. And I finally decided things had to change for me.
So what was that? What was that finally thing where you said, okay, it has to change now? What happened?
Well, I don't remember the real catalyst. I think it was just that my kids were old enough to be in school. And honestly, I'll tell you one thing I remember is I was going down the freeway, and those signs that are lit up and have like next exit close or whatever written on there that you can program the sign. It said, "This is your life." And I kid you not. And it just woke me up to saying, hey, I'm not going to be in heaven one day with a t-shirt on that says I'm with stupid. Like, I've got to take responsibility for my life and my recovery. And I've got to answer to God for how I'm living my life. And that caused me to jump into recovery and learn what I could do for me.
Well, sadly, Stacey, there are a lot of women and men too, absolutely. I was one of them, that the t-shirt of choice is I'm with stupid. Because
That's right.
For whatever reason, they choose to stay in that situation. Now, I don't want to dishonor every person that chooses to stay in a crummy relationship, because there are situations where people, they look at what their choices are and they say, for now, this is what I'm going to do for the sake of stability or children or whatever, because they might live in Nome, Alaska, and there may not be a lot of resources there. So I don't want to discount that. But there are those that have choices. They could make a decision for things to get better. Well, what do you say to that person who, they need to hear someone like you say, I made a decision, I'm not going to live like this?
Yeah, I think that, New Life reaches so many remote areas. And that's one of the things that I have a heart for, because we go to these conferences and these people are in the middle of nowhere. Like you said, Nome, Alaska, they have no help. They think they have no help. They think they're out of solutions. They are so stuck. And we can present them. And that's what I want to say today to anybody that's stuck, is that there are so many ways that you can get unstuck. You can do recovery in so many different ways. Our technology makes that available, but there is no reason to stay in pain anymore. You can grow and learn in 1,000 different ways. So, it's like, how do I want to live the rest of my life that I have, whether it's 20 years, 30 years, or 40 years? Do you want to live staying oppressed? Do you want to live staying miserable? Or do you want to live being empowered and doing something about your life?
Yeah. I think one of the kind of the things that people use to stay in an abusive situation is, well, God hates divorce. And of course, we never want people to get a divorce who, quote unquote, aren't qualified to get a divorce. We want you to get safe. We want the person to end up experiencing consequences, and you just staying there and being quiet, many times that just reinforces it. You have to make the bold move, not to divorce, but maybe separate or help them experience a consequence. Now, why is a person continuing to be a recipient of trauma? There's something that happens to us, and we don't do anything. We get paralyzed. What is that? Why does that happen?
Ooh, boy, I think there's a lot of things and reasons that people stay stuck. And one of the ones that I talk about at Restore is exactly what you said about misbeliefs about in the church. But God hates divorce. I've got to pray and wait and change. And that's part of my story, trying to pray him home. And there's hope distortion that Henry Cloud talks about, where we have hope over something we have little control over. And I always say, what evidence do you have that something's really changing?
Right. Yeah.
And the bar is just so low for change that, and a lot of times it's information that's keeping the bar low. We don't know what to expect in recovery. And that's where getting informed is something that you can do that's empowering, is what do people look like they're in real recovery? Mm-hmm. And so there's that, there's the misbeliefs, there's the beliefs from the church, and then there's fear. Fear is huge. Fear keeps people stuck in bad situations. And I would say that may be probably a family of origin issue that keeps people stuck in fear, thinking they can't do it on their own, or they don't want to be divorced, or a lot of things fear can contribute to.
When people started to identify that there was this thing called codependency that they could recover from, well, it was a great victory for humanity, and it was almost 100 years ago that we started talking about this codependency thing and enabling thing, and people started getting better right alongside people that were getting addiction treatment or in recovery. But sometimes, Stacey, the word codependency is it produces some shame, or it's used to shame. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Man, you're hitting all my hot buttons. You're hitting the things I'm passionate about, and we didn't even set this up. But codependency, I'm a codependent at heart. I know it. It's my default setting. It's just where I go back to. But a lot of times that's rooted in trauma. And so if someone walks into my office and they say, I just can't leave my husband. I know he's acting out. I know he's looking at porn. I know he's having affairs. The first thing, I don't look at them and go, well, you're just so codependent. What's wrong with you?
Right.
I'm going to validate the fact that that is highly traumatic, and that is very, very disturbing. Betrayal trauma is very, very disturbing to them. I'm going to validate all those things, work to get them safe and calm. And then when we get in deeper and deeper, we may start looking at some codependency issues. But hitting people with that right off the bat, I've led codependency groups for years and years and years. But there's certain people I won't hit between the eyes with codependency, especially if they've been betrayed, because they take on the message that it was them and their fault. And then in no way is betrayal your fault. I don't care what you did in the marriage. It is absolutely the person that betrayed's choice.
Well, Stacey, the way I look at it, most of the time that I see now, codependency is a symptom of the problem. It's not the choice that someone one day woke up and said, I think in response to this, I'm going to choose to be codependent. They're traumatized. They don't know this isn't the way it's supposed to be. He's not supposed to be this or that, or she's not supposed to be that. And then it just becomes a symptom of the way they start living, because they truly are living a life they never, ever thought possible.
That's right. It's a coping skill.
And so for us to shame somebody because they've chosen a method or they've fallen into a method of survival, that's a symptom of the trauma, well, that's just very, very, I'd say small thinking or naive, and we don't want to do that. We want to encourage people to get better,
Yes.
not to shame them into a little box. Well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I want you to talk about some of this complex trauma, how one thing on top of another can truly be devastating, but there's a lot of hope and a lot of help. And I want to tell you this, I was betrayed, and there was a certain issue in that betrayal that really was tripping me up. It was a hard time for me to get over. In fact, there was a word, every time I heard it, I would kind of get triggered back into the pain and the agony. And I got a little help from a trauma specialist, and I got to tell you, it worked. And that's what Stacey is, and I'm going to have her encourage you, if you've been traumatized, get the specialized help for it. We'll take this break and come back.
It's hard to find a trusted friend when you're in crisis. Someone who's been there and understands, but who also has the training and skill to give you practical help. Family, friends, and churches want to help, but often they're not equipped to care for those dealing with problems like addiction and pornography, infidelity, anger, depression. New Life Ministries is here to provide help and hope in life's hardest places. We're not focused on making people feel better. We're focused on helping people do the work that will help them be better. At New Life, we have resources available to help you, like books, DVDs, CDs, workshops, and our network of licensed counselors. If you need help, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and begin your new life today.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. We talk about a lot of different types of recovery, whether it's addiction or some kind of really tough dependency or an obsessive habit and compulsion. But we're talking about trauma here today. Stacey Sadler is not just a person in the New Life Network, but she's worked with us in our intensives for years. And Stacey, you've kind of specialized in a complex type of trauma, which makes it extremely difficult for someone to recover. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, difficult but not impossible.
There you go.
And when somebody comes in with complex trauma, I was just explaining this recently to someone. It's like they begin to work through. I have a picture. I had a lady today write on a rock. I said, draw a rock and write that trauma on it, and then take another rock and draw another trauma on it. And we just went through all of her traumas. And I had her write them on rocks that she had drawn. And I said, now one by one, we are going to take a rock off that pile. And there may be little things within each rock, but we're going to work on those. But we're going to protect this pile of rocks from you thinking about all these all the time, because that'll get you overwhelmed and get your brain flooded. And we're going to pick one by one things to work out, and then that pile of rocks is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Good. And on those rocks are all beliefs about yourself that you've wired in every time those traumas happen. But when you start working on some of the beliefs, those rocks are going to get lighter and lighter and easier to take off the pile, because they're all sort of related. And the lady looked at me today and had tears in her eyes because she had been so numb. And she said, for the first time, I feel hope. Oh, because that pile looks so intimidating from the very beginning.
Right. Well, it's such a great principle, one little rock at a time. Anybody that's cleaned up a messy kitchen, which I did over the 4th of July, I mean, it looks horrible. And then you just one little small thing at a time, pretty soon it's all cleaned up. Now, Stacey, there are folks, let's say, we'll just do the stereotypical male-female thing. So a man living with a woman, she has not had a healthy childhood, but she wasn't beaten or anything, but maybe it was emotional incest or it was depravity. I don't know, but she cannot see herself. She cannot admit that she's ever wrong due to this entangled, complex, traumatic situation that doesn't have a definitive, this painful thing happened to me at this moment. So help us have insight into the spouse who's experiencing the results of childhood trauma. They maybe don't even realize how serious it is, but they cannot see themselves. They're in such a defensive mode.
Well, denial is a powerful thing, and I believe it's a God-given coping skill to get through things. However, we numb out the good emotions as well. And so part of trauma therapy is helping people feel safe enough to feel again and feel safe enough to remove those blinders. But we don't come at them with, what's wrong? You're not seeing this. We have to come in the back door and allow them to embrace those insights really, really gradually, because they can't be blindsided with them. They're in denial for a reason. It's gotten them through a lot of years of functioning. But over time, as they feel safer and safer, the walls will break down, and both the spouse and the therapist, if they're handled right, can bring understanding and new connection in that area that has been kind of numbed and even denied before.
Okay, so let's say somebody is listening to this in the car. Maybe there's a podcast or something, or they're watching it while they drive. I don't know what they're doing, but anyway, they're going home to a person that really was traumatized. What is the best thing that you can do if you're in a relationship, especially marriage, to someone who's experienced some pretty severe trauma?
I think asking what they need to feel safe, and some people don't know the answer to that, but validation. It makes sense that you would feel this way. It makes sense that you would have this experience. Say this traumatized wife has been, like you said, emotionally incested by her mother, and something he does triggers that. So what you're saying to me is that when I overload you with my problems, you all of a sudden feel burdened. Well, it would make sense that you would feel that way. Have you ever felt that way in your past? And if she can connect it, great. If not, but if he can validate that and just say, it makes sense that you would feel overwhelmed by my problems, or must remind you of something that's bothersome, that person will relax and be like, okay, I'm not crazy. And that's, I think, the best thing you can do is validate someone that's hurting. Even if you don't agree with it, you don't have to agree with it to validate it.
So in this day and age, what are the therapies or the treatments that seem to work best for somebody that's experienced a lot of trauma over a lifetime?
Well, I'm an EMDR clinician, and of course I think eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, is one of the best. I think also accelerated resolution therapy, that's an offshoot of EMDR. I think any kind of somatic therapy that has something to do with the body and getting the trauma out of the body are all very helpful.
Okay, so tell us what each of those are.
So eye movement desensitization and reprocessing is where we initiate a bilateral stimulation of the brain, right, left. And by doing so, we kind of wake up parts of the brain that have been holding on to traumatic information and help the two sides of your brain get evened out. ART does kind of the same thing, just in a little bit of a different fashion. You don't have to relive it quite as much. And it's done also with eye movements. And somatic therapies can focus on tapping. They can focus on where you're feeling it in the body. ART and EMDR all focus on it because trauma is stored in our body. All of them have just a tad of a different modality, however.
So what each of those is trying to do, I think, is take something that is so painful that it's deeply embedded in us, even the body, the brain,
right,
and trying to help us find peace with it, to somehow, in really a miraculous way, bring to resolution something that maybe is so painful we don't even know that it's there. And there's nothing anti-biblical or anti-Christian Christian about this. You know, people say to me, well, you know, the Apostle Paul didn't have all these different types of things. And I say, well, he didn't have a dentist either. But that doesn't mean he wouldn't have benefited from one. When people question the validity of these, what do you say to them from a Christian perspective?
Well, I say that, you know, God can show up in EMDR too, and inevitably that's what happens every single time, is that the blocks that people have experienced to God get blown away, and they experience God not just through lip service, but absolutely experientially. And so, you know, I believe that He gives us tools, and these modalities are just part of the tools and open up the blocks that I think the enemy puts in our mind. The false beliefs and the blocks that the enemy just loves to throw at us. And I think it's a tool that God is extremely pleased with. And I see Him active in my work every single day.
Well, I'm so glad that you repurposed your life. You're helping a lot of people with trauma, Stacey. Thanks for joining us on Life Recovery today. So grateful for you. We'll take a break and we'll come right back for a final comment.
Life recovery isn't just about making the courageous choice to give up an addiction or dependency. It's a journey towards health, wholeness, and becoming your very best you. If you need resources to help you in your journey, we can help. There are many life recovery resources that you can do on your own, with a group, or with your church. We have Bibles, workbooks, and devotionals that you can use to work your recovery right where you are. That's the beauty of life recovery. To learn more or to get the Life Recovery Bible or any other life recovery resource, visit liferecoverytoday.net or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I am so grateful to work with so many wise people like Stacey Sadler. You know, the Bible tells us in James 3:13, if you're wise, hey, you better prove it by all of the honorable things that you can do in your life. Wise people are not dishonorable people. If you've never experienced that feeling of wisdom, if you're always feeling like, you know, I'm second best or left out, that could be shame. And that could be sent to you directly from Satan himself. You call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Let us connect you with a life recovery group. And perhaps just 1, 2, 3 of those great meetings, the shame will start to lift. We love you here. See you next time here on Life Recovery Today.
Thanks for joining us for Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. We hope this program has helped you integrate God's truth and wisdom into your recovery journey. This program is brought to you by New Life Ministries, and it's your support that keeps this program on the air. When you contact us for any reason, be sure to let us know that you watch on NRB. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to liferecoverytoday.net. Please join us again next week for more Life Recovery Today.